Okay, welcome back to A Life by You, everyone. I'm super excited about today's episode because we have a guest with us, and it
Yay!
is Miss Jessica Locke. She is the host of Whole and Unleashed podcast, as well as she has a published journal, and then also, I would say, is a human design expert. And so we have so much to talk about today, and I'm excited to really learn from Jess all about those things. So, first and foremost, Jess, just to kind of give people some background, you and I know each other from being in a mastermind together. And for anyone who wants to know a little bit more about that, I would definitely, shameless plug, go ahead and take a listen over to Jessica's podcast where I was featured on. But in that mastermind, we learned about human design, which has totally been life changing and eye opening for me. And this was just remind me, how long ago did we learn about human design?
Gosh, it feels like a year, a little bit over a year. Like the last few months have felt very long, but also really quick at the same time.
Right, right. No, I definitely agree. I can't believe it's been a year. I was trying to remember, like, how long has it been? But yeah, so it's been about a year. And if you could kind of maybe give like a high level of what exactly is human design, I don't, it's hard. I always have the hardest time explaining it because people are like, what is this? Like
No,
astrology?
I was. I was like, what is this, like a psychic? I didn't understand it.
Yeah. Oh gosh. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. I am so excited to be here and share something that's been like in my mind for like the past more than half a year. So human design, the best way that I can explain it in a way that makes sense to me is it's a system that's based on the synthesis of like established ancient wisdoms, such as like the elements of I Ching, the Chinese I Ching, the Kabbalah tree of life, Western astrology, Hindu Brahmin chakra system, and quantum physics. And that's like quite a mouthful. When I learn about it, I'm like, excuse me, what is this? But the way I see it, it's kind of like all these different cultures thousands of years ago were trying to interpret or understand the world, and they did so in their own language. And in a way,
Mhm.
years later, somebody was able to kind of synthesize all of that. They were like puzzle pieces that were talking about the same thing. And this is essentially your energies, because when you get your human design, it's about what was happening the day that you were born or months before you were born. What was the energies that was in the atmosphere? So this is the way that
Yes.
you're being guided by. And some of the energies are like, how do you make decisions? How do you show up? Like strategy and authority. How do you move through the world? How do you interact with others? And it sounds like what? Like so mystical at the beginning, but it gets so detailed and nuanced. So it I see it as a really empowering tool to get to know yourself better.
Yes, that sounds very interesting. And I love how you talk about energies because that's where I'm at right now. I'm all into energies and frequencies and I'm fascinated with it. So keep going, Jess.
Well, I was gonna say, I know for me at least, when I first heard it, I was just like, "What?" Just taking all of those things into consideration. Like,
Yeah.
it's so complex, but I love how dynamic it is because I feel like it's so holistic. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, it's not like, okay, because with even astrology, it's like you're a Capricorn rising and the sun and this and that
Sun,
or
right. Yeah.
whatever.
Your moon sign. Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot.
And the great thing about human design, I mean, it's very dynamic like that, but I really feel like it's fully encompassing. So just sorry, I
Mhm.
just wanted to mention that. You keep
No,
going and keep teaching
agree.
us.
No, like totally agree. Even like before, I couldn't really connect with astrology as much. I know I'm a Libra, or like those are the characteristics and traits. What do I do with it? And because I didn't dive super deep, I was like, this is nothing. But for some reason, human design kept pulling me back because I could relate. I felt seen and recognized. So, like intro level, there are four types. Like one of them is a subtype, but generally it's manifestors. They're here to like get things started. They're the fire that kind of like light things up. They're initiators. And then there's a generator, and a generator is someone who is here to respond to, okay, what do I feel pulled to do? How can I sustain? They have a lot of sacral energy, like life force energy, that's what they call them, to make things happen as long as it's aligned to them. Because sometimes people might refer or see generators as like, oh, they're worker bees. And that can feel very overwhelming. I'm not here to work all the time. As
Hmm.
long as it's aligned. And then the subtype is manifesting generator, where they have kind of the energy of a manifester to initiate, to start something, to follow through, but they also move really fast because they're here to kind of spark, move something, and then jump somewhere else. They're here to just show us the possibilities of what can be done. And then there is a projector, who are non-sacral beings, just similar to a manifester, where they're here to guide. They're here to see, okay, I see all the things that were started by a manifester, that's sustained by a generator. What is not working? What can I like make better? What are the weak points? And then a
Right.
reflector, which is here to basically reflect everything that's happening. Is the environment healthy? Is the generator who is doing this work feeling good about it? Is the manifester, did they start in a right place? So they basically reflect. And the idea is that all these roles, we're here to work together. But we all try in society to either be a manifester, to, get things started, go after our ideas, instead of
Hmm.
really honoring what your energy is pulling you to do.
Now, can
How
a
does that feel
person
so
be
far?
all of those things?
So we have qualities of all of those things. That's such a great question,
Okay.
because we move through all the different energies in our chart, and we're also influenced by the planets. So some days, because of the planets and the transits, we might have, the energy of a manifester, but it doesn't change who you are as a type, because it's almost like
Gotcha.
you're trying on that energy, but that's not your main operating system.
Got you. Nice. Because I was like, I feel like I could be some of those throughout my life. I feel like I was maybe a manifester here and then a projector there, but okay, I like that.
Yes, yes. I love that so much, because we're always changing and evolving. And sometimes when we learn about our type and chart, we might feel like I'm a projector, but I have energy to do the things. I can work all the time. But the nuance is like there are certain gates. Once you get into the channels and gates, when you get your body graph, then you
Hmm.
recognize where the energy is also coming from. So
Right.
it comes from everywhere.
Gotcha. Cool.
So I was going to ask, once someone figures out, okay, they give you they can go online or they book a session with you, they give you their birth date, where they were born, the time that they were born, um, and then they find out they're either, one of five, one of those
Yeah.
five types, human design types, and they get this chart, and it's like this crazy it looks almost like I liken it to, and to no offense, but I've seen like Scientology type things. Like it kind of reminds me of some things like that. Like it's like anatomy. There's all these shapes. There's different, so you start learning about the centers and all, all these different things. Can you kind of give us like a high level of what those things mean? Because it could be, I think human design is a great tool, and at least for me, has given me so much permission to be who I am and understand my energy level and really honor um, what I need to do to be my best self, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
But I also had a lot of help deciphering that information.
Oh,
I had access to a coach. I also had a session with you. So for someone who's kind of getting started and they see that initial chart, like, is there any guidance you can kind of provide? Like, what am I looking at?
yes, yes, totally agree. I've created a bunch of resources on my website just for that, because when I first started and I went into a deep rabbit hole, it was so overwhelming. The chart, there's like shapes and colors, there's like red and black. So I'll try to like break it down in a way that is like digestible. Like this is something that it's almost like a buffet. You don't eat it all in one bite. It starts with layers. So you start by learning your type, but once you get your chart, you will notice that on the left side of your chart there is like red colored, and then on the right side there's black color. So that's divided between your personality and your body, your unconscious side. So the red is the unconscious. So those are the parts of you that you might not notice as much or might not resonate with right away, because we are not just our personality, we're also our body. So this is the way that they break it down. And then you get a body graph, which is, you see some shape that is it represents the 9 energy hubs, starting with the head and crown where you get inspiration, and then moving down towards the mind, ajna, where you process the inspiration, the questions you have in life, and then towards the throat, which is kind of they see it as like, sometimes people talk about it as like Grand Central Station, because all the energy in our graph wants to be expressed, and through the throat, that's the energy where it's being expressed. And then later you get G center, which is identity, and then the heart ego. It also represents the energy hub for willpower, and then slowly moving to the solar plexus, which is like emotional energy. This is where you process all the energy. Sacral life force energy. That's what sacral generators and manifesting generators have. And then finally, two more, the splenic, and then root center, which is like pressure of consistent pressure, life view. Was like an overhead of like all these energies. But when you get your chart, you see them either outlined or colored in. So anything that is outlined means you're here to receive and amplify that energy. So let's say you have an open solar plexus. You're here to, you might notice that you're sensitive around the emotions of others, that you can pick up things even before you can rationalize it or somebody talk about it. And then any center that you have defined, colored in, is where you have consistent energy. And it's kind of what you put out in the world, how you influence others. How are we doing so far?
Good. Jennifer, I lost you for just a second. Are you able to? Uh-oh. There it is.
Sorry,
Okay.
the cleaning people are here, so I didn't want them to.
No, I understand. No worries.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah, that's awesome.
it's so dynamic. Like, and that's just like one layer. One thing that I wanted to ask about is like, for instance, I'm a manifester, and I actually pulled up Jennifer's information at one point. She's also a manifester, but we're two different types of manifestors, for instance.
Yeah.
So for each
Yes.
human design type, then there's different, do you call them
Yeah.
subtypes, or what do you, can you kind of give
So
us a
we
little
call
breakdown
them,
about that? Because that kind of aligns to the chart too.
yes, 100%. So, like, when you learn about your type, then you learn about your strategy and your authority. So, what you're talking
Mm.
about now is authority, which is what kind of manifester you are. There is an emotional manifester, like, they have the emotional awareness. This is where they make sense of what they want to do next, what they want to start. Splenic Manifesto. I believe that's what you are, MJ. And this is about like intuition and fears and just getting the splenic hit about what you want to move towards. There's also a ego manifester. I think they're more rare because it's based on willpower. Like they're here to initiate what they want and their desires. Not saying that the other types don't do that, but it's like their superpower resides somewhere else. And then the strategy. So there's a different strategy for each of the 5 types. The one being a manifester is to inform, because you have so much energy when you want to start something. It's almost like a firecracker. When you're informing, you remove the resistance. So the people around you, either the ones who want to support you, they can tag along for the ride. If they don't, then they can make space for you. Kind of like, so that's how you can move your energy without resistance. That's the point of strategy. How can I move my energy with the least amount of resistance? And then there's generator and manifesting generator. That's very similar. They're here to kind of honor their sacral response. They're here to wait for the response. Like, what am I feeling pulled towards? What do I want to respond to? What do I want to say yes to? Doesn't mean they can't start businesses, because another misconception is that I'm not a manifester, so I can't start anything. That's not true. It's how you start it and how you wait. So, as a generator, you might want to start something, you think about it, and then a couple months later, maybe a manifestor or someone else tags you along with an idea, and you feel this pull to make it happen. You feel it in your body, so you're here to respond. What do you want to engage with? Because that can also activate your sacral and tell you if you have the time to commit to that. And then there is projector, which also, depending on their authority, overall their strategy is to wait for the invitation. Because we're non-sacral beings, and also because we're here to guide, a lot of times they want to guide and solve every problem, but we don't have the energy to do this. And I say we because I'm a projector. So it's really, what are you being invited to? What are you, who are asking about your ideas? Who recognizes you? that's how your energy gets to move in a way that is well received. Otherwise, unsolicited advice sometimes is very common with projectors. We just want to help, even though nobody asked for it sometimes. And finally, as a reflector, they're here to wait a lunar cycle. And that simply means reflectors, they have no definition in their chart, which means every area in their energy hubs, they sample everything around them. So they need time to move through the different energies in a lunar cycle, because in 28 days, the moon moves through like different gates and the different energies, and they kind of get clarity when they sample different energies and then reach a decision through that. So their wisdom really is on like trying on different roles, tasting different flavors, and then coming to a different conclusion. Yeah.
No, I love how everything ends up aligning back to the energy aspect. And it really, at least for me, as you were talking, I was just like, wow, it really makes me think. I always want to know what everyone else's human design is, because I feel like sometimes we have certain expectations on how things should be done, whether it be a partner or someone you hire or a friendship or whatever. But I think if we could understand their energy and how they navigate best in the world, we probably could, one, give ourselves some grace, but then also give them grace and better understanding. Like, if they're a reflector, they need some time. Like, they're going to need some real time. Like, they're not going to just pop out and do it, because that's just not how they're designed. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So I
Yeah.
think it would be so awesome if we could know everyone's human design, I feel like.
Yeah. Now that I've learned about it,
Really.
I kind of like it filters through the lens. I'm like, I wonder if they're like a generator. I wonder if they have this energy, because you have the energy in your chart, and sometimes your chart can be similar to someone else. Maybe it's a twin, but how you express this energy and your
Mm,
conditioning influences that, right? Let's say
mm,
someone has the exact same energy as you, but their conditioning was that they weren't allowed to speak up or they weren't comfortable. So much of the energy looks so different with each person. But
Mhm.
also understanding your own process, like if you have as an authority, your emotional authority, that means you're always riding an emotional wave. That means like if you get a job offer, you feel so excited about it. And then the next day, you might feel depressed, even like, what am I doing? But you're meant to ride this wave. You're energetically charged by your emotions. And when you get to the middle of it, that's when you get a bit of clarity of like, actually, I do want to do this. So the wisdom here is really just wading through your, you know, riding your waves. And then if you're splenic, you might just get a hit about why you want to do something. And it's quick, because splenic is the center about intuition, awareness, fear, survival. Like when I decided to join the mastermind last year, I got a hit. I felt this like warm energy pulling me. I couldn't explain it to anyone. I'm like, there is no logic other than it feels right. And how do you, it feels empowering when you know that's your inner knowing is right. It kind of like a reassurance.
yeah, for me, it's knowing that I'm splenic has been like a huge permission slip, because for the longest time, I've had the hardest time explaining to people, like, no, this is off, or no, I'm not going to, like, it's hard to explain why I'm going to do something or not do something. And I just know innately this is what I'm supposed to do or not do. Um, and typically things will play out and things will, and then I can maybe explain it later. But I
Yes.
should said this to you before, just during our session, that human design has just been like this huge permission slip, again,
Mm.
just to um, lean into and trust myself, especially being splenic. Um, but I think, like you said, some individuals might be more emotional or whatever it may be. And people, even as a manifester, people, I used to say about myself, and these are stories I tell myself, I'm an idea fairy. Like, I'm always thinking of new
Mm.
things. But that's what I'm supposed to do. Like, I'm supposed to initiate. Like, that's
Yes.
what it's not meant for me to finish everything. It's not meant for me to see everything through. I'm supposed to initiate things. So I'm doing exactly what I'm supposed to do. And I know I've shared that with Jennifer, because you've even shared some of that sentiment before,
Yeah.
Jennifer, how you're like, girl, I change with the wind. I'd be like, I don't want to do that, or I'm doing this now. And
No.
I'm like, that's what we're supposed to do. Like,
So it makes you
Right?
feel better. You don't feel as bad. You don't feel as guilty that you didn't finish something. So I was like, okay, cool. I'm supposed to do that. So now I don't feel bad.
Yeah, and it's also, I feel like society tries to box us into like, you have to be ambitious, you have to do all those things. But then the more we get to know ourselves, certain things will apply and others don't. And I'm curious, Jennifer, do you know what your authority is, or like what centers do you have to find?
I
Um, as far as the human design, no, not really.
I think it
I
was
really want to learn that.
I think it was emotional.
Yeah, I don't
So
remember.
if I vaguely, it was.
Was it?
I think so. We'll have to look it up. We'll have to look it up again. I forgot. I
Yeah,
apologize.
We
I
can
want to
explore.
know.
Yeah, so if you're a manifester, it's either the emotional authority, splenic, or ego. And the ego
It's
authority,
emotional.
for anyone who has that, is they're here to really follow their desires, their will. Like, I want to do this, and they're really driven by that.
Right.
And sometimes, like in society, people are like, don't be selfish, you should think about everyone else. And
Yeah.
even owning our desires has come a long way. A lot of people feel guilty about it, but when that's what
Yeah.
that's how you were designed, and this is the inner
Um,
knowing that you've been following all along, there's something wrong with you.
totally. You nailed it on the head. And what I've been learning with my energy healers and things like that, my coaches, if you're doing something out of alignment and going against what you truly want to do, that's when disease is created. That's when you start getting all kinds of other issues going on. Because and we are in a society where we do that. I'm going to do this even though I don't want to, and I stopped doing that. If I don't want to go to an event, I don't want to go to an event.
Oh, yes.
I'm not feeling it. You know what I mean? And I don't feel bad about it because I know it's not in alignment with what I'm supposed to be doing right now. And I really listen to that instinct in me now, where before I would feel so guilty and I go back and forth. And I think as a society, we are shifting into that direction to really kind of listening to our inner selves a little bit more and stop, the clutter and the noise from what society tells us to do.
Yes, yes,
So I
amen.
love that this teaches that.
Yeah, I wanted to add something that was like a revelation for me, because this week in my like training we're learning about the gate. It's called gate 5 and 15. Gate 5 is the gate of fixed patterns, so anybody with that energy, they thrive when they have a routine. If they get thrown off their routine, they might feel overwhelmed. They're like, what's happening? Like, this is what I ground. Like, this is how they get kind of prep their energy to move through the day. And I have gate 15, which is the gate of extremes. We do not thrive with routines. And when I was like, I have a certificate as a health coach, I tried so hard to do all the healthy things that were good for me. I kept getting sick. The moment I gave up the idea that I needed to stay in a routine, like I would wake up whenever, I gave myself permission and grace to do it. And that was recent, in
Yes.
the past like year or two, I got healthier. Like my schedule is all over the place, but
Yes.
I'm honoring how I'm feeling, and that feels so good. And then I learned some people in my life, they have the fifth. I'm like, oh yeah, you need your morning walk, you need that. And like, no, just you do you and I do myself. I'm not going to try to like fit into yours, because I have relationships where we try to fit into each other's schedule, and then realizing that we have these two different energies. It was
Yes.
just, why were we trying so hard?
Right. Because society tells us we should be
Hmm.
this
Yeah,
way. Our
yeah, to
teachers, our
fit so people wake
parents.
up early.
Yeah. Our teachers, our parents, what worked for them, they're trying to impose onto you. And it doesn't work that way. That's why when they say, as parents, you have to let your children live their life and live their journey, we cannot impose everything that we want them to do onto them. It's because it worked for us or it didn't. You know what I mean? We have to let them figure it out and find their little way.
Yes,
Right?
amen.
No, and
So,
if you take the lens of human design, they're technically it's not. There's no. I mean, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but there's no way they're designed exactly how you are. Like even if you're both
Yeah.
manifestors, there's so many. It's so dynamic. There's no way that they navigate and the way that they operate in the world is going to be the same. You know what I mean? So you're absolutely right, Jennifer, and I think that. Um, Knowing this information can just unlock so much for you. I think in terms of just like from your career, deciding what type of career you want to go into or the type of business you want to start, how you communicate and operate in relationships. Just like you said about your health, I love that you mentioned that because if you're out of alignment, it can take you to, I mean, because society ends up pushing us a certain way to assimilate, people are having, in my opinion, are dealing with this ongoing disease because they're not in alignment. They're not living their full human design, you know? So, and then I think also, one thing I wanted to ask you, Jess, was like, is there like a, you mentioned with reflectors, like the, I wouldn't say seasonal, but like timing aspect, but is there any like, does your human design change, or does basically your chart provide guidance in terms of that? Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, that's such a great question. Like so many people start asking like can I become like so your energies that you have they never change, but your relationship to them changes and how you experience them. So I think a couple of weeks ago there was like a in the transits it was defining people's like head and mind, which means like people had a lot of mental energy compared to before. So you will experience the different energies throughout the months and the years. You go through different seasons, but who you are at your core doesn't change. But your relationship, when you notice that, can change when you learn about it. Like if I know that my head is active and my mind is active, I'm like, okay, am I gonna think that something's wrong with me because I'm getting insomnia? No, it's the transit. Maybe I'll watch TV until I get tired and it's fine. So learning about those energies that influence us and who we are at our core is what, you know, makes this so dynamic because you can be anything you want, really. As much as sometimes the information feels limiting, but it's not because it's your relationship to it. It's like how do you work with the things that you know? For instance, I learned that I only have like two areas defined, so I don't have a lot of energy. And that gave me permission to follow my birth because my energy comes in bursts, and I used to feel like something's wrong with me health wise. I used to think I'm eating healthy and all that. Why did my energy drop? I was in the flow last week. And then when I started embracing the fact that sometimes when I'm in connection with some people, because we are influencing each other with our energy, I will feel pumped. And then when I'm away from them, I'll feel tired. There's nothing wrong with my health. It was just I was amplifying. We were in a relationship, and being able to release the energies that we've amplified throughout the day, it's just that's how we get closer to our center and who we are.
Yeah. All about the energies.
Yeah.
I love that. So I want to transition the conversation a little bit to share a little bit about your journal. But while we're on here, so Jennifer, your birthday's coming up, and as a birthday gift, I did get you a reading.
Oh,
I haven't officially ordered it yet. I need to, but I'm ordering you a reading with Miss Jess, and she's going to give
thank
you an
you.
awesome overview. And all I ask is that you share it with at least me, because
Of course. Of
I just want
course.
to know so bad.
Like, I
I'm
want to
so
know who you are,
excited.
girl. Of
No,
course. Thank you. That is so sweet of you.
but
Thank
I think it would even be really cool if you know, maybe as a part two of this episode we could talk a little bit about it, and maybe
you.
if we could pull Jess on a little bit just to give a little interpretation.
Yeah.
Maybe after you've marinated over your reading, it'd be awesome. I think it would be really helpful for some other individuals who
Yeah.
are looking to explore this. You know what I mean?
Most definitely. I'm happy to share. I'm open book. I'm completely transparent with what's going on in my world. So I am open to sharing that, and I'm looking forward to doing that with you, Jess. So thank you,
Oh, I'm
Mallory.
so excited. And the one thing that I do want to bring in is that human design is they call it an experiment. Like you can read that, but you can't think your way into alignment. You can't just say, "Oh, I have that energy." It is you need to embody. You need to test it out because maybe it does not work for you what you're trying to say. That's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're just
No.
not there yet. It'll evolve. You haven't evolved yet to get to
Yeah.
that point. Still a couple more lessons to learn, maybe.
That's life, right? That's life. We're never there.
No, it's a constant.
No.
It's a constant learning lesson.
No, and it's so funny because I felt this immense pressure my almost 37 years of life to, you know, I need to know my purpose and I need to understand this and this and this. And Jess will understand this from my chart. Like, none of that. I need to get over that. Like,
Yeah. A lot of people do. That's the thing. I
yeah.
feel that people so caught up and hung up is they feel like the pressure from society. Oh, I should have a passion. I should be
Hmm.
married. I should have kids. I should. No, you shouldn't. Just put all
Yes.
that alone. Like put it to the side. Live your
Yeah.
life. Enjoy
Yeah.
the experience. That's all it is. It's an experience, whether it's good or bad. It's only experiences. That's it.
No, I love you're absolutely right, Jennifer. And at least for me, again, human design has just been so profound and just so eye opening for me to just it's given me such a sense of peace and love for myself. I feel like I've always loved myself, but I
Yeah.
feel like this year, my word of the year for 2021 for 2021 was flow. And I really feel like human design has really, between what I learned in the mastermind and then even with my reading with Justice, has really allowed me to live more in flow. You know,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
you know, as we approach the new year, you know, and all this new energy is happening, I can't express enough to, you know, get with Jess or start figuring out some human design, all of you guys, because it's just so eye opening and so freeing, at least for me. So, yeah. So,
Yes.
Amen.
shifting gears. So, you know, you published a journal, which I'm just so excited to get my hands on. It looks absolutely beautiful from what I've seen on social media. But do you mind sharing just a little bit of the background behind the inspiration and a little bit about the process on how you were able to put this out to the world?
Oh, thank you so much. I'm so excited to share about that. So it's very like the premise of everything that I do is to let go, to decondition everything that's not us and come home to ourselves. What is it that we are? What is it that we want? And whether it's human design or this journal, oh, I got it here. I'm like, I can show it. I'm so excited. This is like the hard copy. So the premise of this journal is to just bring us closer to ourselves. Because sometimes when we have goals and dreams, I get so obsessive about it that I forget about myself. Like, how am I? Who is the person who's fulfilling those dreams? And any journal I've gotten became to-do list. And I'm like, well, I don't need another to-do list. So I wanted to create an environment where I could really check in with myself. What are my core values? How am I doing today? How can I honor my body and also be excited about where I want to go? Because sometimes when we're so excited to chase those dreams, we just want to jump there, but we can't. Our body needs time to recalibrate. We need to soothe our nervous system. Maybe we need some healing. Maybe we need to slow down. So the journal is really like the space where you cultivate a relationship to yourself and build trust. So we start with, there's three sections, and you start with the foundations, which is where you set your foundations. Like, what do you need to have, to grow and expand? What are your core values? How are you spending your energy every day? Because sometimes we don't realize we might spend 90% of our day doing tasks that do not fulfill us and that are draining. And if you're able to take a step back and see how much of the percentage of your day you get to do the things you love, how much you don't, maybe we can pivot gears a little bit. And then taking all that information, there's also the second part, which is grounding tools and practices. So much about the things that we learn don't get embodied until we practice them, until we set rituals like sacred practices to help us remember what it means to come back to our body. What does it mean to feel like myself again? And then finally, it's like the daily pages. There's like a morning and night where you check in with your body. How did you sleep? How did you feel today? And also celebrating what was great about today and also not so great. Holding space for the accomplishments and also like, oh, maybe some further exploring required. And then there's also the weekly pages where you kind of also sum up the week. It's prompted. I forgot to say it's a prompted journal, undated. And then there's some questions that will ask you, how was your week? What did you celebrate? What was really great? What not so great? And then go towards planning instead of going straight into doing. Let me plan. Let me slide all this in the calendar. It feels good. And then you didn't check in with yourself.
I like that. Check in with yourself.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't
And
do
then
that.
there's also like monthly planning, very similar. And there's also it's a 90-day journal, so there's 3 months of lunar cycles. So new moon setting intentions and how to release in the full moon, and 90-day review about like, what did I do? And how was I? How did I do? How did I feel?
I love that you know, sometimes people try to, you know, take on this behemoth of self-care and wellness. I feel like, and I feel like by breaking it down by 90 days or a season, it's far more attainable.
Yeah.
And I noticed that you have it. It's not dated. It's you can start it whenever you want. So it really just gives you permission to decide and define when that season is for you. It doesn't necessarily have to be, a true season. You could be in a season in the middle of a season, and
Yeah.
it really just kind of acts as a guide for you to get really intentional and purposeful with your life. And I love how it really acts as like a guide to get you back into alignment to yourself.
Yeah, thank you. And also, like in the past, I've started so many journals and I dropped off in the middle. So this is also designed to like you can pick it back up whenever. Like, don't force
Mm.
yourself if it doesn't feel good. But how can you? Because sometimes this can be a little bit triggering when you get into the core of like, oh gosh, everything I've been doing has not been in service of myself. Like, there's a reckoning. There is like, and you might need space to process. So permission to like fully leave this until you're ready to pick it back up again. Like, nobody's forcing you to do anything you don't want to.
No, and that can still be powerful too. You can end up looking at it as a reflection of these were 90 days that I was intentional, and it could be a big, you could define what that period is. It doesn't have to be 90 consecutive days either.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
that's really helpful. That's awesome. So, can you share a little bit about your mindset and, just embark? I don't know a lot of individuals who publish things. So, what was that piece like, if you don't mind sharing a bit?
Oh gosh, this was honestly such a transformative experience for me because it was never intended to become the thing it's become. It was supposed to be a bonus of a course that I was building, which is setting the foundations and the grounding, all of that. It was this big beast, and I'm like, maybe I can do a journal, and I just printed it for myself because I wanted to kind of connect with me, and I shared it on my Instagram story, and people messaged me, and it was just this thin little thing. It wasn't perfect. It was like, if you're making a journal, I want it. And while I was learning about my human design, I was learning about waiting for the invitation. What are people recognize, pulling in for? And for 4 years earlier in my business, I was trying to help people with burnout through yoga. Nobody really cared, like, at least not for me. Like, they cared about it, but they weren't ready. They weren't recognizing me for that. And when I got a little bit of recognition and then kind of like, this is fun for me to do, then I kept putting it out there. And it also like crumbled a belief of mine that things had to be perfect before I share with anyone. That if it wasn't perfect, it wouldn't be worthy. But when I got these responses for the first time ever, this kind of evolved to, oh, people are ready for this. People want to connect to themselves. And that was an invitation for me to look into how can I publish this, what would be sustainable, what will be, profitable, or like, yeah, sustainable for people, because I test printed something that was like 20 pages. It cost me $40. I'm like, how am I going to do this if this is going to be like 300 pages? Like, people are going to go broke. So I found this really amazing publishing company. I'm just like plugging them in. They're not sponsored. It's called Lulu Publishing. And the great thing is that it's made to order. So if you're just starting out with an idea, you don't have anything to lose. You can order a few, test it out, play with it, talk to your friends. And I realized how supportive everybody was. I think I've been so caught up in like, I have to be perfect, I have to have it all figured out myself, that I realized that this process can be so supportive. I totally lean on my community. They told me what they were looking for, what they wanted more of. And it just became this like collaborative process.
Talk about alignment. I love it.
Oh,
That's fantastic. I love hearing all of that. Good for you. Congratulations.
thank you.
That's
I can't
awesome.
wait to get my physical copy and start working on myself a little bit more.
Yeah, I'm gonna order a copy myself. Where can people find you and your website and all that good stuff so people can go and order and maybe schedule a
Yes.
session?
Um, my website is wholeandunleashed.com, and then you can find current offerings or sessions. And then on the tab on the top, there's also the Align and Embody journal. So you can click through to find out more, see some pictures, because I like seeing pictures before I buy anything. And you can also
Visual.
find me on Instagram at jes.locke. and also at Whole and Unleashed for my podcast.
Perfect.
Love that. Thank you so much, Jess. We super appreciate it. Jennifer, did you have any other questions or anything?
No, I just want to do my session. And then in part two, I'll probably have a ton of more questions.
Yes, please. It is a lot to take in at the beginning,
Yeah,
especially when you don't have your own chart to connect with. You're just like,
right.
okay, you're telling me about all of this?
Like, what? So I can't wait to see it.
Awesome. Thank you guys. Thank you so much for listening. And as usual, guys, if you are listening to this podcast on Apple or Spotify, we love, love, love reviews. So please leave us a review and let us know what you love and what you love to hear more of. And thanks for listening.
Thank
Thank
you.
you for having me.